Hi there, this is Alvin from Dr. Wealth. Today, I want to talk about the recent short seller report on a very popular EV stock called NIO. And the accusations, we're going to run through one by one, and I'll share with you my views, whether I agree or disagree with them, and of course, why. So, if you are a shareholder of NIO, be sure not to miss this episode. So, let's go. This is the key accusation that Grizzly Research have on the relationship between NIO and this company called Weineng. Okay, so Weineng is a customer of NIO. NIO produces the batteries and then sell it to Weineng. Weineng in turn sell the battery as a service to the NIO subscribers, right? So NIO drivers or owners can, instead of buying the whole battery, subscribe on a monthly basis, which will lower the upfront cost for their ownership of a new vehicle. So then Weineng will just collect this subscription fee while NIO just sell the entire battery to Weineng. So that this basis of the relationship creates all the accusation that will come follow on. Right. So let's run through this accusations, and then I will share with you whether I agree or disagree with this. Okay. So the first is that the short seller was saying that NIO is using Weineng to improve his financials. So I agree with this, okay, because NIO has successfully disassociate itself from selling the subscription. Because if you think about it, if you sell the subscription, you can't get the full revenue upfront. You have to break it down into a monthly basis, and you can only recognize the revenue as you have collected the fees from the subscribers. So in that sense, with this Weineng, NIO can straight away pull forward 7 years of revenue. Right? Instead of taking the subscription fee over 7 years, they just sell it one shot to Weineng, and NIO register or recognize the full revenue of the battery as though it has 7 years of subscription has passed. So to that, they assume or they estimated that NIO have inflated its 2021 revenue by 10%, and the loss in NIO should have been larger by 95% if Weineng is not this associated company. Okay, so you must understand this Weineng is not a subsidiary of NIO, it is an associate company. So which means Weineng financials does not consolidate into NIO's figures. So that is how they disassociated the two parties, and that's where one can recognize the full revenue while Weineng couldn't. Right? So that is this relationship, and I agree with the short seller that this is not desirable. Right? It's almost like creating another company to hive off the bad financial numbers that you don't want to see. Okay, so that is the first accusation. But I would also say that it is not really a fraud because legally they are allowed to do this. And as long as the batteries are being produced and really being sold to Weineng, right, it is not a fraud technically. So you can say that it is a smart way to reorganize the companies in this way. But let's go through some other accusation. Then we have a bigger picture or a better picture of what's going on. The second accusation is that NIO oversupplies batteries to Weineng. So this point I disagree, and I'll have my reasons later, right? But what is the accusation that we are talking about? So Wei Neng has 19,000 customers, as the short seller dug out from some documents. And it was also from another source, they found out that Wei Neng has 40,000 batteries. So to the short sellers, Wei Neng should not have excess batteries, right? Because they should only have one for each customer, all right? And thereafter, even in the fourth quarter of 2021, NIO continued to supply another, I think, 19,000 batteries to Weineng, where there was already excess. So to the short sellers, they just feel that NIO is trying to recognize revenue as quickly as possible by doing this oversupply to Weineng. But to me, I'm not so sure about that because it could be a business strategy, and that is a genuine reason for Weineng to build up the battery capacity, right? It could be they want to have more redundancy at the battery swapping station, right? Or it could be because they might think that they need to ramp up the production of these batteries while they could maybe they expect some supply chain disruption, or maybe the battery cost will go up. So it could be some business strategy that they accelerated the production of batteries, right? So for that, we actually will know, and this accusation may or may not be true, right? So I don't really agree with this oversupply thing. And then the next accusation is on NIO having significant influence over Weineng, and Weineng should be a subsidiary of NIO. Okay, because due to the accounting principles, and even though NIO only have about 20% stake in Weineng, but if NIO has proven that it has significant control over Weineng, it should still be a subsidiary, and which means Weineng's number should be consolidated into NIO's financial figures. So I agree on this point, right? Because based on what they say, and if it's true, NIO directors have control, right? At least one director from NIO is also on Weineng's board. Okay, and not only that, the key roles like the VP of NIO is a legal rep and chairman of Weineng, and another manager in NIO is also a general manager of Weineng. So in a sense that NIO is essentially running Weineng, or the NIO's staff are essentially running Weineng. So it has significant influence, and which means Weineng should be a subsidiary. And that also means that NIO could no longer recognize revenue as fast as they want to be. Okay, so they have to do the substitution, right, with the BaaS model, battery as a service model, and recognize the revenue slowly. Right, so all the excess revenue and the profits margins that we have talked about previously might disappear. Right, so I do agree with this. Okay, that they should be consolidated, and the numbers may not be as rosy as what they seem to be. All right, and another accusation, enrich local government. Okay, that's a big one, a big accusation. I disagree with that. So what was the accusation about is that they found out that there were early investors. Then there were like two entities, local government entities, that invested in NIO in the early stages, and there were some terms that they have the right to redeem the shares, right? That means sells the shares and get back some cash as NIO go on listing. Okay, so there were some terms there, and in the recent years, the government has been redeeming the shares. Okay, and NIO has been using the cash raised from the capital markets to pay all these investors back home. So to them, they feel that that is not fair because they are just taking money from the US investors and then giving to the Chinese government, right? So I don't know whether there's any political enmity over here, but I do feel that it is natural that early investors are taking a lot of risks, and they eventually will want some profits out of it if they could, right? Because it could turn out sour. This investment could turn out sour. They did took the risk, and if it worked out and they want to cash in, they want to profit from it, I don't think this is wrong, right? Whether is it a government or a private entity or a hedge fund, I think that is just business. Okay, I don't think that this accusation actually stands. All right, so I don't see anything that's political about it. I see more as a business perspective. And the next accusation is that there is this new user trust. Okay, so which the founder has created. He transfers some shares into this trust, and then in turn he pledged the shares in this trust with a bank, okay, to borrow money, right? So the short seller feel that this put the shareholders at risk, NIO's shareholders at risk. Okay, so I disagree with this because I think pledging of shares is a very common practice. Right. So more importantly is how was the cash used? The short seller didn't really talk about it, and I don't think that this acquisition can just be put out like that, right? But if let's say this money raised from this pledging of the shares is used to further NIO's development, to hasten the production of cars to meet demand, rising demand, then I think that is a good use of the capital, right? So it highly depends on how the money is being used. Pledging the shares isn't something that is wrong as a practice, all right? And the next one is NIO's CEO connection with a shady person called Liu Erhai. Okay, because this Liu Erhai is involved in one of the bigger fraud cases with Luckin Coffee. Right. In this case, I disagree because the short seller did dig out some of the connection with Liu Erhai, some of the companies that they were involved in together. So Liu Erhai was like independent director of two of this NIO CEO's companies before, right? And Liu have also invested in NIO before. Okay, so that is those relationship that the short seller ducked out. But I felt that they are not really very close kind of a working relationship. It's not like they are co-founders. It's not like they are key executives because independent director don't get really involved in the company day-to-day basis, right? It's very distant in that sense. In fact, they are supposed to be a check and balance, not really a friend of the CEO, right? So I don't think that just because they appear in a company, then they're colluding together, right? So I think it's a little bit far-fetched in that sense, because it's almost like picking who you want to talk about. There are so many investors in NIO as well, right? Why don't you talk about Tencent? Why don't you talk about Ponyma? Why do you bring out a shady person just because you want to prove your point? So I think this is a little bit too over the board, right? You should then bring out all the connections that this new CEO have in the past, and not just single out one person that enhances your case. Okay. Next one, NIO's chairman using the company for interest-free loans, right? Using NIO for interest-free loan. This accusation, I agree, and the NIO chairman should not be doing that. Li Ping, which is the CEO, right, or the founder or the chairman of NIO, has this company called Ningbo Meishan Bonded Port Area Weilan Investment. Such a long name. He owns 80% of it. And it was reported at one point in time, NIO lent money, 50 million renminbi, okay, to this company that's owned by Li Ping. And it is no interest. And what's more interesting is that the loan was miraculously paid off when NIO acquired a 1% stake, about 1% stake in this Ningbo company, which in a sense is it even like related to NIO? How does it help NIO with this investment, or is it just because of a convenience of the chairman? Right, so I do think that this is on shaky grounds, and I think that NIO shouldn't have made this investment. NIO shouldn't have lent out this money, and it is something that I think the individual benefited on the expense of NIO. Okay, so I think this is something that's bad, right? I agree that this accusation is a right one. Okay, so in summary, what we can see is that there are some allegations that are I agree with. There are allegations that I don't. I think that they are on very flimsy grounds, right? So the key thing is that I agree that the Weineng relationship with NIO is a very dodgy one. Okay, and Weineng should be a subsidiary of NIO, and all this advanced recognition of revenue should disappear, and which means NIO numbers should be lower than what it is. But is it an outright fraud? I don't think so, because there is really, as long as there is real batteries being produced and being sold to Weineng, I don't think this is an outright fraud. It's just the way that they organize it. They are just making it to their advantage, such that NIO's number looks better. Okay, but it is not really a fraud, because it is still within the accounting principles, right? Except that they have significant control over Weineng, and that should be a subsidiary. Okay, other than that, I don't think it is an outright fraud in this case, right? And I disagree with a lot of the other smaller kind of allegation. It just felt like they wanted to prove their point. They wanted to find more things to portray NIO on a back light, and just lengthening the laundry list, okay, the dirty laundry list. But I think some are really on flimsy grounds, okay, because there are many companies that do it as well, right? Not just NIO itself. Okay, so why target them and bring out certain very distant kind of relationship with some other dodgy people, right? And lastly, I'm not a new shareholder, and I don't intend to be a new shareholder. It is not because of this short seller report. The key issue that I see is with the entire EV industry. Like, I don't really have any EV stocks, because I can't really know who is the winner ultimately. It is a very competitive field, and it is just too difficult for me to figure out. So that's why I avoided it in the first place, right? But I thought this case is an interesting one, and I believe there are many new shareholders out there, and I hope I have at least give you my views and help you dissect what is going on in the very long 30 pages report in just this short video alone. So if you like this video, remember to give me a thumbs up, and remember to subscribe to the channel too, so that I can produce more of this informative analysis of stocks for you in the future. I'll see you around. Goodbye.